This podcast is brought to you by Ridgeline Municipal Strategies, a financial consulting and municipal advisory firm helping California's fire protection agencies with financial planning and financing for facilities and apparatus. And by FeeMaster, the premier impact fee program management software. We help you stay on top of your impact fees. The material discussed on the podcast is for general educational purposes only and is not meant to be financial, legal, or municipal advice. We hope you enjoyed this discussion.
Okay, let's dive into something really fundamental to how communities grow safely, but maybe something you don't think about every day. California fire mitigation fees.
Right.
You might also hear them called development impact fees. And our source for this is an article, Best Practices for Fire Mitigation Fees in California. It's basically a guide for agencies.
That's right. And what's fascinating about these fees is their purpose. They're designed as a powerful, really necessary tool for California fire departments.
It's a tool for what, exactly?
To ensure they can keep pace with new development, keep services up.
So like as more homes or, offices or stores pop up, these fees help fund the expansion of fire and emergency medical services.
Exactly. To cover that growth specifically, the funds are directed toward expanding those critical systems.
And that means tangible things, I assume, like buildings, trucks, equipment.
Precisely. Yeah. The fees can cover everything from, say, construction or expansion of physical facilities, fire stations, training centers, admin buildings.
Okay.
All the way to acquiring the essential vehicles, fire engines, ambulances, cars. Sources even mention helicopters sometimes.
Helicopters, wow.
And major equipment purchases needed to serve those new developments. It's comprehensive.
Got it. So our mission for this deep dive then, pulling from the source material we've got, is really to unpack the best practices, the things that allow fire departments to truly make these programs work effectively. For you listening, this is really about understanding a key piece of the unseen infrastructure funding that supports the places we live and work as they expand.
Yeah, it's connecting the dots, isn't it, between growth and the essential public safety services required to support it.
So the sources really emphasize that following best practices isn't just like a suggestion. They say it's non-negotiable. Why is getting this right so critical?
Well, the core goal really is to ensure the fee accurately captures the full cost of the public facilities directly necessitated by new development. I mean, if the fee doesn't reflect the true cost of providing service to that new building, the rest of the community ends up subsidizing it, essentially.
Okay. So getting the calculation right is key to maximizing the revenue that's actually intended by the law.
Absolutely. Following the best practices laid out in the California Mitigation Fee Act is how departments ensure they collect the full funding amount needed, and importantly, what's allowed by the law.
It sounds like putting one of these programs in place or even just updating an existing one isn't exactly a quick project.
No, it's definitely not a fast process. Implementing or updating a program, it typically takes anywhere from, say, 6 to 12 months.
6 to 12 months, wow.
Yeah, which raises an important point. You have to start planning early. You really do.
Right.
And because these updates, they happen infrequently, sometimes decades apart, believe it or not.
Decades.
Yeah. So the staff, they might not have recent experience with the whole process. That makes having a clear, well-documented process manual absolutely vital.
Okay, let's dig into that foundation building then, the planning and design phase of a fee program. Where does the department even begin?
Okay. The foundational requirement, the absolute starting point, is developing a truly comprehensive list. A list of every single facility the fee is intended to fund.
Every single one.
And you need to be exhaustive here. Really thorough.
So not just the obvious big items like the station itself.
Correct. I mean, this starts with the land and structures, the fire station, sure, but also administrative offices, training centers, anything needed to house operations.
Okay.
Then you add the apparatus and vehicles.
Yeah.
The engines, ambulances, support cars, maybe helicopters, like we said.
Right.
But here's where it gets really interesting. And the source flags this as a potential hidden funding gap.
A hidden gap. Okay, tell me more.
Well, many older programs, or maybe just less comprehensive ones, they only calculate costs for the buildings and the vehicles themselves.
Yep.
Just the big stuff. They completely missed documenting and including the cost of the major equipment that goes inside those buildings and on those vehicles.
Oh, I see. Like what kind of equipment are we talking about?
We're talking things like extrication tools, the jaws of life, right? Medical equipment, monitors, defibrillators, communication systems, radios. even the furniture and IT infrastructure for a new station, lockers, appliances.
Wow, okay. I wouldn't have necessarily thought to itemize all of that. And missing those costs adds up, I bet.
Oh, it adds up to a significant funding shortfall. Properly documenting and including these equipment costs can unlock substantial additional funds. Funds needed to make a new facility truly operational.
Not just an empty shell with a truck parked out front.
Exactly. It's the difference between funding just the box and wheels versus funding the fully operational service delivery system.
Makes sense.
And beyond that, the program planning should also include associated costs, things like architectural and engineering fees for designing new buildings.
Right, the soft costs.
Exactly. And all the necessary initial equipment for outfitting those new stations, the medical cabinets, everything down to the last detail.
Does the fee structure itself need to be rigid, like one size fits all? Or can it be more flexible based on the type of development?
That's a great question. The source strongly recommend incorporating a more dynamic fee structure. You really need to consider how different types of development impact service demand.
Okay, so like a high-rise apartment building versus maybe a small strip mall versus a single-family home, their call volume needs would be pretty different, wouldn't they?
Precisely. Yeah, you can implement appropriate fee categories or maybe surcharges based on factors like building size, height, or type of use.
To better match the fee burden to the actual impact on the fire and EMS system?
Exactly. It makes it fairer, more proportional.
And, costs just keep rising over time. Inflation is a killer. How do these programs stay financially viable?
Financial adjustments are absolutely critical, super important. The recommendation is to build an automatic annual inflation adjustment right into the fee ordinance when it's adopted.
Automatic. So it just happens.
Ideally, yes. Because program updates, remember, they only happen every 8 years at a minimum. Inflation can severely erode the fee's value over that time if it's not automatically adjusted each year.
That makes a lot of sense. What about the costs of, managing the program itself? The studies, the reporting. Can the fee help cover that administrative overhead?
Yes, good point. You can include an administrative surcharge. It's typically around, say, 2 to 4% of the fee amount.
Okay.
And this is specifically intended to cover those necessary ongoing program costs, things like the legally required nexus studies and the annual reporting. Keeps the program running.
And one last point on the planning side, financing the really big projects. If a department needs to, say, issue bonds or take out loans for a new station or some major equipment, can those financing costs be included in the fee calculation?
Yes, and this is a really important piece for funding those large assets. Financing methods, bonds, loans, leasing, they significantly increase the total cost of facilities. Why? Because of interest expenses and the cost of issuance, right?
Right, the cost of borrowing money.
Crucially, the law does allow for these costs, the issuance costs and the interest from financing, to be included in the fee program calculation.
Oh, okay.
That ensures the fee reflects the true life cycle cost of the facility when it's financed, not just the upfront price tag.
Okay, so the planning and design, it sounds incredibly detailed. Now comes the challenge of getting it formally approved. How does that typically work for a fire district in California?
Yeah, this highlights a key interagency dynamic. What's interesting here is that fire districts often don't actually have the authority to adopt these fees themselves.
They don't, so who does?
They generally rely on the city or the county that has jurisdiction over the development. That city or county has to formally adopt the mitigation fee ordinance on behalf of the fire district.
So the fire district does all the technical work, calculates the fee, but then another government body has to give the final sign-off. It sounds like it requires a lot of coordination.
It absolutely does. A whole lot. It means engaging with the staff and, importantly, the elected officials of those partner agencies. The city council or county board of supervisors early in the process is essential.
Get them on board from the start.
Exactly. The force suggests things like inviting them to meetings, keeping them well informed, really working to build support and smooth that path to approval.
I can see how political buy-in would be crucial there. Are there strict legal hoops to jump through during the approval process itself, like procedural things?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yep.
Playing by the rules is paramount here. California law has very clear legal requirements, things regarding public hearing notices, deadlines for holding those hearings, and requirements for making all the supporting documents, like that nexus study we mentioned, available to the public well in advance. Transparency is key.
And if you miss one of those steps, what happens?
Well, violating those requirements can lead to significant program adoption delays. You might have to restart steps, which costs time and money.
That sounds frustrating.
And critically, it opens the door to potential legal challenges. lawsuits that could stop the program entirely, or at least tie it up for a long time.
Okay, so dot the I's and cross the E's legally. Beyond the legal and the interagency side, what about the community itself? Do residents and businesses need to understand this new fee?
Absolutely. I mean, ensuring community support is vital for successful long-term implementation. It really is.
How do you do that?
The source stresses the importance of proactive communication, talking with residents and businesses about the program's purpose, explaining why these fees are necessary to maintain response times and safety as the community grows.
So they understand it's not just some arbitrary new tax hitting them.
Right. It's directly linked to the services needed for new development. Keeping the community informed about the department's successes, maybe its challenges too, showing them the value of the service they rely on that helps build appreciation and support for the program. It can make the concept of paying these fees, well, more palatable.
Makes sense. Okay, so let's fast forward. The program has been planned meticulously, it's navigated the approval hurdles, and it's up and running. What are the best practices for keeping it running smoothly on a day-to-day basis? The administration part.
Right, administration. The absolute cornerstone here is proper accounting and record keeping. Consistent and thorough documentation is essential for everything.
Everything.
Like the ongoing accounting, making sure money goes where it should, the legally required reporting, which we'll get to, and any future program updates down the line. Good records are foundational.
And there's a very specific rule about the money collected, correct? How it has to be handled.
Yes, this is a critical legal requirement. Super important. The fee revenue must be kept in a separate fund, a distinct account.
Separate from general funds.
Absolutely. It cannot be commingled with the department's general operating funds. Cannot. And, just as importantly, it can only be used for the specific types of capital facilities and equipment outlined in the program documentation.
So you can't use it for, like, firefighter salaries or daily operations?
No, definitely not. It's strictly for the capital costs associated with growth, the stations, the trucks, the major equipment funded by the program.
Are there tools available to help manage all this? It sounds pretty complex, tracking everything separately.
Yeah, leveraging technology is highly recommended for efficiency and, frankly, for compliance. Things like online payment portals can streamline the collection process.
Make it easier for developers.
Right. And digital record management systems are pretty essential for accurately tracking revenue and expenditures over time. The source even mentions specific software, FeeMaster, I think it was called.
FeeMaster?
Yeah, which is apparently designed specifically for comprehensive mitigation fee program management. So tools exist.
Okay. And what about the staff who are actually, collecting the fees at the counter or tracking the funds?
Good point. Proper training for any staff involved in fee collection and reporting is really important. They need a solid understanding of the program's purpose, its mechanics.
Why it exists.
Exactly. So they can accurately process the fees and, importantly, clearly and correctly explain the fee to builders or developers who inevitably have questions. Customer service matters here, too.
Speaking of reporting, you mentioned that. Are there state mandates for reporting on these fees? How often? What's involved?
Yes, meeting reporting mandates is a strict legal requirement in California. The law mandates annual reports detailing the activity, how much was collected, what it was spent on, interest earned.
Okay, annual reports.
And even more critically, there's a requirement for a comprehensive 5-year report. This looks at the program's overall financial status, expenditures, and basically justifies the ongoing need for the fee based on development patterns.
A 5-year deep dive, essentially. Now, you mentioned this raises an important question with a significant consequence.
Yes. What happens if you fail to meet these annual and 5-year reporting requirements?
Okay, what's the consequence?
The most severe consequence, and this is a big one, is that the agency can be legally forced to refund all of the collected unspent fees in that fund.
Refund all of it?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yes. Imagine having to give back years of accumulated funding, money earmarked for a desperately needed new fire station or engine, just because the paperwork wasn't done correctly or on time.
That would be devastating.
Absolutely.
Right.
That's why having robust systems for capturing, documenting, and presenting the required information accurately and on schedule is completely non-negotiable. The stakes are too high.
Wow, okay. That really underscores the importance of diligent administration. And does clear communication continue even after the program is approved and running?
Absolutely. It should. Developing clear program materials, things like fee schedules, explanations of how it's calculated, what it funds, and making them readily available, maybe online and in print.
Makes sense.
That's not only a legal requirement in many cases, but it's also just good business practice. Transparency builds trust.
Finally, you mentioned updates aren't frequent, maybe every few decades sometimes, but is there a legal requirement to actually update the program periodically? You can't just let it sit forever.
No, you can't. Mitigation fee programs must be updated at least every 8 years, according to California law. That's the minimum.
At least every 8 years.
However, the source notes that more frequent updates might actually be necessary, depending on the circumstances. You might not want to wait the full 8 years.
Like, what sort of circumstances would trigger an earlier update?
Well, things like significant development happening much faster than anyone anticipated when the fee was set.
So the projections were off.
Right. Or unforeseen changes in facility or equipment needs, maybe technology changes or standards change.
Yeah.
Or, importantly, revisions to state law that impact how the fees have to be calculated or administered. You need to react to reality on the ground and changes in the law.
Keep it current, basically.
So wrapping this all up, these fire mitigation fees, they're clearly a powerful tool, but man, they are complex.
Incredibly so. Implementing them effectively based on everything in the source takes meticulous planning up front.
Yeah, all that inventory and cost calculation.
Right. Then navigating the politics and legal hurdles of approval.
The interagency stuff, the public notices.
And then there's the ongoing, diligent administrative work, strict accounting, mandatory reporting, regular updates. It's a major undertaking.
But the goal, the whole point, as the article really underscores, is to fund that essential expansion, to get the facilities, the equipment, the apparatus, even those jet skis that departments need to keep pace with growth.
So they can continue to provide that vital safety net for you, for the community. Understanding this whole process, it kind of pulls back the curtain, doesn't it?
It really does. On how these services we rely on are actually funded and managed behind the scenes, making sure they can actually be there when you need them most.
It's a lot more involved than most people probably realize.
Definitely. And, thinking about the sheer volume of administrative requirements laid out on the source, I mean, the detailed inventories, separate accounts, annual reports, 5-year reports, 8-year updates, legal notices, tracking financing, inflation adjustments, training staff. That's how you ensure fire departments can truly get the resources needed to serve growing communities safely and effectively.
Our source for this deep dive was information primarily from Ridgeline Municipal Strategies, LLC.
Yes, and the materials indicated they provide services assisting fire protection districts with financial planning and securing financing for those big-ticket items, the facilities and equipment. Mentioned various types of loans and leasing options, too.
And they specifically mentioned offering a free consultation on impact fees.
For more information, check out FeeMaster, the premier impact fee program management software, at munifeemaster.com. If you are looking for help with setting up or updating your impact fee program, visit Ridgeline Municipal Strategies at ridgelinemuni.com.